Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Lehman from Math with Mrs. Lehman, and I'm going to do a quick video on how to do some tape diagrams when dealing with ratio problems. Today we had a bell ringer that says muscle is made up of 85 parts parts water, 12 parts fiber, and 3 parts salt. What is the ratio of fiber to total muscle? So the key things here is that there's 85 parts water, 12 fiber, 3 parts salt. We want the ratio of fiber to total. So fiber was 12, total was made up of the 12, the 3, and the 85, so that adds up to 100. So the ratio is 12 to 100. That could be simplified, so you can write that as a fraction as well, and that would be the same as saying 6 to 50, or simplified all the way down, 3 to 25. All right, you're looking for a common factor of each, and it's the same as simplifying fractions where you just divide out that common factor. So anyway, 12 to 100, 6 to 50, and 3 to 25 are all what we would call equivalent ratios, and they all have the same value. All right, the next question here says organs are 39 parts water, 9 parts fiber, 2 parts salt. What is the ratio of salt to fiber? So we want salt first to fiber second. So salt was 2 parts, fiber was 9 parts. So our answer there, and it cannot be simplified any further, is 2 to 9. The other thing that we talked about in class that's important is that there are 2 different types of ratios. So we have part to part ratios, where we compare one part of something to another partial amount of something, and then we have what we call part to whole ratios, where we compare part of a quantity to the entire quantity. So for example, we gave the example of kids wearing glasses. There were 4 out of 20 that wore glasses, so that's a part to whole. If we wanted to do a part to part example, that would be, there were 4 kids wearing glasses to 16 kids not wearing glasses, where we compare the 2 different parts of that group. If we look here, the muscle example 1, that is a part to whole example because it's comparing just fiber to the entire muscle makeup. And then for example 2, they want salt to fiber, so it's part of what makes an organ to another part that makes an organ, so it's part to part. All right, the other thing that we did today is we kind of skip around a little bit because just how it kind of makes sense. Yesterday we talked about Sammy and David selling water bottles and setting up a tape diagram for that. This next example, number 19, is pretty much the same type of question, same setup, where they give us a ratio and then they give us a total that ratio represents, and then we have to figure out, the individual amounts. So anyway, Miss Johnson and Miss Seipel were folding report cards to send home to parents. The ratio of the number of report cards Miss Johnson folded to the number Miss Seipel folded is 2 to 3. So we know this 2 goes with Johnson and the 3 goes with Seipel. And it says at the end of the day, Miss Johnson and Miss Seipel, both of them, folded a total together of 300 report cards. How many did each person fold? So to do this, what you need to do is look at your original ratio that you were given, which in this case was 2 to 3, which represented Miss Johnson and Miss Seipel. And what you do is you draw a box for each, a bar diagram for each of those people. So Johnson was 2, so I'm going to draw 2 boxes for Johnson, and Seipel is 3. So you want to make sure the boxes are of approximately the same size, and 2 obviously should be a smaller bar than the bar that represents 3. One thing that kids forget to do is label, so please make sure you're labeling your answers and you have that ratio represented as a tape diagram, and again, that's found right here. So we're not coming up with that out of nowhere. It's right in the problem. So at the end of the day, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Seipel folded a total of 300. So what we want to do is represent both of these quantities. So we're just going to put a little arch there, and we're going to write 300 because that represents all of the report cards. Now, we want to count these boxes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total boxes, right? So we want to say that we have 5 units. We call these units, they're equal amounts. 5 units, and that equals 300 report cards. Then what we want to do is think about this in a way where we're splitting the 300 up amongst those 5 equal boxes. So we're sharing 300 equally amongst 5 units. So if we do that, that calls for division, right? Because we're dividing the 300 up amongst 5 equal units. So that would be 60 for each unit. So we would say 1 unit equals 60. So the goal of this is to use whatever info that you are given to try to then figure out the value of one single unit. Once you figure out one single unit, you can use that to answer pretty much anything about that ratio problem. So 60 is what we figured out, that 1 unit is 60. So you want to take that 60 and every box, you should write 60 in it. All right, now we can figure out that Miss Johnson had 2 groups of 60, so 60 times 2 is 120. And Miss Seipel had 3, so that would be 180. And if you were to add up 120 and 180, you would get 300. So the last step is obviously to write this as a sentence here. So Miss Johnson folded 120 report cards and Miss Seipel folded 180. Right, so we are going to move on to what the homework is tonight. The next question we're going to do tomorrow when we talk about when they give us maybe the difference between the 2 quantities, because that one is talking about how there's more girls and boys at this particular concert. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. So your homework tonight is based on the same setup as questions 18 and 19 on page 10. So if we go to page 11, this is where your homework is. It says, when Carla looked out at the school parking lot, she noticed that for every, and that is a ratio alert, so 2 minivans, there were 5 other types of vehicle. So if there are 161 vehicles in the parking lot, that's the total amount, how many of them are not minivans? A lot of kids miss that says not minivans. So what you really want to do, and I'd help you get this set up a little bit if you're watching this. All right, so you're noticing that there's 2 minivans. So minivans to other, right, is 2 to 5. So we want to write that, or draw that, I should say, as a tape diagram. So I'm going to call that maybe mini, and this one other. And mini is 2, and the other was 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, so we have 2 to 5. Now it tells us that there are 161 vehicles in the parking lot total. So that doesn't just represent minivans. So we're not going to write it here, right? And we're not going to write it here. What we're going to do is write it, here, because it is inclusive of both categories, minivans and other. So that's what we have. Now what I want you to pay attention to is how many units does that encompass, right? How many units does that take up? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 plus 5 is 7. So we know 7 total units make up 161. So, hint, hint, you're going to divide those, all right? You're going to find the value of 1 unit by doing that, and then you're going to plug that you're going to plug that information into each box, and then you can figure out how many are minivans and how many are not minivans, which is what your question was. So anyway, hopefully this helped if you're struggling with your homework tonight, and we will continue tomorrow with a few different types of examples. So I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for watching Math with Mrs. Lehman. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. I'd really appreciate it. We're over 100 subscribers, so that's super exciting for me. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.